what you get is, what do you know, come move from here, shift. So it's just to point that out. Also talking about our forms of dress. I'm rarely ever in a suit, for people who know me. But then I had to speak also at a corporate event downstairs, and the reality is when we get invitations that say business casual, this is what they mean. If I am to show up in any other form of dress, I will not be addressed the way that I wish to be.
Then I think I have just one more speaker, and then we have to, because I'm sure we want to hear from our panelists.
I'm not sure if it's afternoon yet. Good afternoon, everybody. It's quite a privilege to be surrounded by greatness. See Mr. Tony and Professor Femi. One of Femi's early songs that resonated with me was Black Man Know Yourself. And it was from that song that he said that the first university was in Africa. Before that, I had never heard that the first university was in Africa. So those were the little things that got me getting to know about history. There has to be a retraining of the mind. We cannot ignore history. Now we're in the internet age where you go into information and you can't even believe that your people were this great. My friend mentioned about having the courage, what history does to you. It makes you stand knowing that you come from a line of kings. Black men did so many amazing things. And even the little history that we learned when we were in school was really watered down. So history is very, very important. There has to be a retraining of the mind. You talk to younger people now and they literally think that the West is heaven. They want to think like the West, they want to dress like the West, we abandon everything. And even as parents, we need to be intentional about what we tell the children, because we're not teaching them anything. The television is, from beginning to the end, is very European-centric. In the schools, is Eurocentric. In the music, is Eurocentric. As Debola was saying, we need to invest in media, in letting people see the stories. If you're not curious, you will not know any history. It's not in your face. You have to literally dig deep. And it's not just searching 1 or 2 lines of Google. You actually have to go deep to know about the Marcus Garveys, to know even what happened in Nigeria. We don't know. Even the Civil War is almost like it's a myth. Nobody knows anything that happened. There's no room for reconciliation. All the tribal insecurities that we have is because we don't have any history. We've been told, don't trust this tribe. This tribe does this. This tribe does that. I always ask myself, what happened before slavery? I'm sure we traded. I'm sure that there was not this level of mistrust. But what's happening now? So it's good for us to merge ancient history with modern history. Once we know what the ancient history is, it will be a burden on us to create the right history for our children. Mr. Tony mentioned it. It's time for us to tell a new story. But then if we don't know where we're coming from, we won't be able to tell the right story. Thank you so much for having today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to add also that it's an extreme pleasure to be here in such honorable company, and to hear you speak all has given me further inspiration about the future. I do believe, even prior to now, that there is a convergence between economic development and an awareness and an appreciation for where we come from. I mean, as a female, I've been in the business world for as long as I've left school. And I remember being inspired by Efun Shetwaniwara, even though in some ways she was a rather tragic, story. And Tinubu as well. And younger, way back then, and when I used to be challenged as a young banker, being a woman and being rather forthright in my manner of speech, and quite assertive as well. The history I knew of those women used to make me feel really strong and confident, and to give back as good as I got in every situation. The economic wealth that Africans have created long before now also needs to be, the story of that needs to be told in order to let everybody in this generation appreciate the fact that we were born into wealth. We controlled wealth. In recent times on social media, I started following 2 handles on Instagram. One is Hashiri Magazine, and the other is Ukuru. I find those 2 handles mind-blowing. I see images of women in the Igbo society from the 12th, 13th century, dressed in opulent clothing. The wares spread around them in the marketplaces. I see images and stories about what used to be many, many years ago, of the early historians who came into Africa and took pictures of what Africa was like. And I'd read the history books, but I'd never seen images. The images are powerful. And, I'm a feminist, unapologetically so, and also sitting down with older aunties and grandmothers, hearing their stories of how in the early days there was as much female empowerment as what we are dreaming of now. I get told every time by these older women that, I don't know why you went to school and what did it get you? We were uneducated, but we had more power, we had more rights. So I just want to encourage all of us. We've heard it from the panelists, but us younger people, if I can count myself as one, that there is a lot that history can do for us in terms of creating and generating wealth, in terms of mental health, in terms of community development as well, in terms of bonds across borders. History can do a lot. Thank you.
Left, and I'm going to ask all my members of the panel. We've had a range of issues raised from the floor. We've used the word tribal. Are we colonizing the language and colonizing our minds along with it? It was suggested that Europeans have settled their wars. I don't think so. Even recent history might suggest differently, but certainly we have our own conflicts on the continent. In a way, I guess that I'm seeing those who see history as a burden from which we are struggling to come out, and those who see history as a source of inspiration, where we can look and say, yes, we did it before, we can do it again, and more things are in our future. Are we too different to unite? Was one of the questions. Are we too diverse for us to unite? We talked about our lingua franca, the problem of passports, and our friends across the continent who are very welcoming to Europeans. But history as a gift. So can I start with you, Femi, and ask your response to some of the issues that have been raised from the floor?
I think we should really truly move forward, but I think the gentleman there misunderstood me if he listened to me from the beginning. I said this language is a format of confusing us and making us fight one another. Look, I'm so upset with myself. I dream in English. I speak in English. And education teaches us to look down on people that dream in their language. I find it so uplifting when I meet Africans that dream in their language and speak in their language. And I'll give you a quick example. A guy that works on my DSTV is very Yoruba guy. When I'm talking to him in English, so are you going to fix the light, the wire? Baba, Sheri, you speak yourself. Don't you? I'm speaking English to you, but what amazes me is I'm seeing him think his soul is Yoruba. He's dreaming in English, in Yoruba. He has to transcribe what I'm speaking to him in English. And that's the beauty. And this is what we have lost. Colonialism, slavery has taken that from us. We have to understand the damage that has happened to us as Africans. Yes, we need an African language or what you see, if we don't see Africa, the way I see Africa is a patient. Before you treat that patient, if you go to the hospital now in many clinics, they just say you have malaria, and you could have cancer, you could have typhoid. We have to understand what is the problem of Africa. We must diagnose that problem. And that problem, history will tell us that problem. Now, when we find that, then we can administer the drug Africa needs to recover. Now we know it's language barrier. We know those borders we are talking about. Nigeria is a colonial structure. Ghana is a colonial structure. So when you see Fulani languages over there, we know that when Europeans sat in 1885, they cut us up like a cake. So you even have Yorubas in Togo, Benin, up to Ghana. We know, and they cut us, we were like longitude, and they cut us latitude to keep us divided forever. All my songs sing about this. My father, Dr. Nkrumah. So this is still the fight. We have found the problem. We now have to live to conquer that problem. And I have to say at the end of the day, we mustn't forget, as we even fight for women's rights, at the end of the day, don't let us start another colonial problem amongst ourselves. It's one people, one world. Women must not now come and oppress men when they get that power, that we are going to fight for them. And start to lock us in the room and tell us a man's place is in the kitchen.
Samia Nkrumah, I would just like to have your response, because we talk about unity. Are we united by language, or are we divided? And how can we move forward? Because if Europe is more settled, they at least can claim some historical reason for their different nations. But we, as Femi says, we're cut up like a cake. Isn't that more reason for us to unite?
Sure. But before that, I want to assure Femi that when we come to power, we won't repress. We won't repress men. So no, but yes, I wanted to answer the question of the young lady posed. Very important, because speaking of history, we recognize there is the good history, the bad one, as you said, and the history we have to learn from. So as far as African unity is concerned, what have we learned from our history? We were defeated because we were disunited. We were colonized because we were disunited. We are neo-colonized today because we are not united. So what does that teach us? That we need to consider doing the impossible. Defeating colonialism 50 years ago was it seemed like an impossibility. The British Empire, you are going to defeat the British Empire, or France with all its colonies, but it happened. So the impossible can become a possibility. It is true, our continent is diverse, different languages, different ethnic groups, different religions, different everything. But I want to go back to Kwame Nkrumah's original thesis for unity. And he laid the foundation for that thesis when on the eve of our independence. Now imagine this, people have struggled to attain independence, and people are waiting to hear from you, the leader. What do you have to tell them? And then he tells them, our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of Africa. That set the tone. That set the tone for what was to come. So when he got up in 1963 in Addis Ababa to say, we must have not only economic unity, but political unity. Do you think we can have a common currency before we agree politically to do it? Just think about it. Do you think we can have common languages without it being a political decision? Swahili was introduced. It took a generation for East African countries to speak that language. Was that not a political decision? It was. So we are never going to go anywhere unless we view unity as a political project. What is missing in our discourse is that we think, okay, we'll do it later. Let us agree on a common market, on this, on that. I'm telling you, we are going to wait another 50 years. So, how do we focus on political unity? It's not going to come from the top. That much I can tell you, because we've tried that. Leaders who spoke for unity, who advocated it strongly, who worked towards it, who sacrificed towards it, some of them even gave their life. So that political unity will not come from the top. So where is it going to come from? It's going to come from us, from you, the people. The people. Once we understand, Chairman, that we are making history, the men and women, and this is particularly for younger people, of course, because you are the majority in Africa today. You make up 60%. People must organize and put pressure on leadership to take the unity question seriously. Constitution, we can change our constitutions. Do you know that when Ghana gained independence, there was a clause in the constitution which says we will not surrender our sovereignty for any reason except to further the cause of African unity. That was in our constitution. And not just Ghana. Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Egypt, Tunisia. Several countries took that step. So we must put pressure to change our constitutions, to allow us to look forward, to enable us to unite.
Thank you.
The power for unity is with you. So you have a mission to accomplish. Don't leave here thinking that it's impossible.
I'm so sorry to cut you off because, but I'm afraid that the great dictator time is against me. And, but at the same time, it was good that we heard from the younger generation, because I'm now going to have to condemn everybody to 30 seconds of response, if that is possible. May I ask Professor Niane?
Merci.
Thank you.
Il y a beaucoup de problèmes en Afrique.
There are many problems in Africa.
Le problème des langues.
The problem of language.
Le problème du développement économique.
The problem of economic development.
Etc. L'unité et autres.
The problem of unity and others.
Mais tous ces problèmes se réduisent à un seul problème.
But all those problems can be summarized to only one.
C'est la réalisation de l'unité africaine.
It's the realization of the African unity.
Et je me tourne vers...
Comme as Samia mentioned.
Il faut que l'Afrique s'unisse.
Africa has to unite.
Les langues peuvent être dominées par des enfants.
The languages can be different.
Nous avons vu dans le passé de l'Afrique l'empire du Mali, l'empire du Ghana, l'empire du Zimbabwe. La langue n'était pas unique, mais il y avait l'unité.
We have seen in the past, in the Malian Empire, Zimbabwean Empire, Guinean Empire, that the languages were not the same, but there was unity.
Donc, en principe, la langue n'est pas une opposition entre nous.
Actually, the language is not an opposition among us.
Le problème, c'est l'unité.
The problem is unity.
Et l'unité dépend d'une chose et une seule chose, une prise de conscience.
And unity depends on only one thing. We have to be conscious.
Une prise de conscience bien prise, je dis bien par le leader, descend jusqu'au peuple.
From the leaders to the average people.
Alors, donc, c'est la prise de conscience qui détermine la politique ultérieure.
And it's that conscience that will determine the other policies.
Nous avons vu au moment des indépendances, il y avait des nationalistes, tous étaient nationalistes, et la population a été nationaliste avec eux.
We've seen that after the independence, leaders were nationalists, and the populations understood them and they were following them.
Ben, on nous cite le cas on nous cite le cas du pays de Kagame aujourd'hui.
We can see the case of Rwanda today.
C'est une prise de conscience qui est à la base.
Is that a conscience that has taken them to where they are?
Et cette prise de conscience est assumée par.
You've been watching the UBA Africa Day celebration panel discussion coming to you live from the Amphitheatre UBA building, Marina, Lagos, and it was broadcast live on Channels Television. You're watching Channels Television broadcasting from Lagos. Back to the studios now for the continuation of our regular programs.